أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Amongst the faiths of this world, the one most prominently emphatic on the message of the centrality of God is the formal Islam of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And this is witnessed by the communication of God in the form of Quran. It's unrelenting. There is emphatic acknowledgement that is required on behalf of the faithful of the existence of one God. And for us to tend to one God, to obey one God, to trust in one God, and to acknowledge that we will stand accountable before one God, and we will return to that one God. It is highly, highly God-centered. What is more is that it reminds us that every faith that has gone before Islam, its essential message has been this God-centricity. But it has been adulterated to an extent. Yet the Quran says, there is a God-centered spirit within you that tends to God nonetheless within the folds of every faith. And that is why we find these verses of the Quran as we're going to this sermon, which state that indeed the people who believe, by that meaning the formal Muslims, the Christians, Jews, and Sabians amongst them, these are the formal titles of people belonging to differing Abrahamic faiths. Amongst these groups of people, whoever genuinely brings about faith from deep within their souls in Allah, acknowledges accountability before God, and performs righteous deeds, they shall have no fear and they shall have reward with their Lord. Immediately, this verse is acknowledging two levels of belonging with God. One is the formal level within the folds of faith, given faith. And one is a common level of the inner being, where God is reached out to spiritually, and people attach themselves with God. So in fact, the Quran is saying that even if the formal faiths, where a formal acknowledgement for the existence of one God is required, even if they theologically, notionally, or doctrinally fail, that is not the point of salvation. The point of salvation is what is happening deep within, and that deeper inner belonging with God is available to one and all, no matter how accurate or inaccurate their formal faith may be. And then again, we see from the tone of the Quran that when it says that these people shall have their reward and there shall be no fear upon them, it is not at the exclusion of other people. It is simply saying that these people will have salvation, not saying that the others will have damnation at all. It is like saying the people congregated here now will have immense reward for taking time out and coming to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this second Jum'ah of Ramadan. This does not in any way imply that those people who are not here will be devoid of such rewards. It's merely acknowledging for a particular group. Now, when we look at the Quran and we study it carefully, and we look at other traditions of this world, we begin to realize that this life of our world or worldly life is not the onset of our existence. Something has happened prior to this life. And this life is almost here to make amends for things that might have happened or transpired before this life. And making of amends in this world is to recognize our God by recognizing Him deeply within us, to awaken to God, and to lead a meaningful, substantive life. Something has definitely gone on, and we have forgotten it. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. We are here for a purpose. At our disposal is a very limited span of time. And the only thing that is required essentially is for us to come to the acknowledgement that we are heading towards God. In this sense, if we look at the spiritual supplications offered by the prophets of the past, our blessed prophet and the impeccable, immaculate progeny of our prophet, we see that they are speaking in a language that is sitting somehow deeply within our souls and hearts. It strikes a chord. We don't know how, but it has meaning, and we recognize that deep meaning deep within us. If we look at these du'as, they have two faces. Both of them are reflections of what is in the Quran. One is the formal face of acknowledgement of God, not only verbal acknowledgement, but a psychological acknowledgement of God. If you look at the dua that are recited in the early mornings of Ramadan, it will say, "O Allah, I do not hope from other than you, for if I were to hope from other than you, they would surely disappoint me. O Lord, I do not call on to other than you, for if I were to call on to other than you, surely they will not respond to me." As they build into their du'as, then comes a sentiment in which the Imam states, "O Lord, allow me not to call on to other than you. Allow me not to rely upon other than you. O Lord, when you are my God, let me not be turned away from you to anybody else. O Lord, do not make me desirous for what you have bestowed upon people when you are more than capable of looking after me." It's a wonderful sentiment that these du'as are portraying. But yet, it's a very formalistic sentiment. When we work deeper into these du'as of the Imams, and we see at this level now, there is a spiritual yearning to find God and to attach with God and to find that deeper meaning and a substantive form of union with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At this level, the Imams supplicate, "O the one that I have to turn to in my difficulties, O my companion in my tribulation, O my friend in my states of sorrow, O the one who shares with me my states of joy. You are the one who conceals every defect of mine. You are the one who caters for every need of mine. Allow me to be cut away from all other than you and to be directed firmly with you." This level is a level of spiritual inner calling, a state of wanting to belong so thoroughly and so fully with Allah that the inner being feels no more anguish, that it is understood that this life is a passage, a turbulent passage, a passage in which there is no stability, but a stable component within this turbulent life is God. It acknowledges that this life can cause one to go off the track. But if we hold on to God, then the inner being is firmly embedded in the truth, and it's firm. How many a times do we fall foul to anguish, to fear, to anxiety, and we find our inner states disheveled. We do not understand and we don't acknowledge that beneath the calm that we all portray are turbulent winds. Beneath the light that we show up on our face is dire darkness of confusion. It is that level that we need to tap into. And it is at that point we need to belong to God. And that is a universal yearning within every soul, be they of the Abrahamic faith, the most accurate in Tawheed like Islam, or less accurate in the explication of the unity of God like the other Abrahamic faiths, or faiths who do not acknowledge God in a way that the Abrahamic faiths acknowledge God. At the depth of each soul is this crisis, and each soul is yearning out and calling out to the friend, to the intimate companion. This month of Ramadan offers us an opportunity to go deep within our souls, to open our hearts, to talk with our God, and to belong with Him with that confidence. And if we can arrive at the point where Hussein ibn Ali stood, then what else can we desire? Where we can embrace the decree of God so fully that we do not get perturbed at losses, nor do we get distracted by gains. Of what value is the kingdom of Solomon if the kingdom of God is devoid of light? And what have we lost if the kingdom of Solomon is snatched away from us? If God appears within the realm and the domain of the soul. So it is here for us to awaken, to read these wonderful supplications at nights that are so God-centered and God-focused, to find our God, to be at ease with Him, and to be one with Him. Now I want to express a sentiment that the Imam expresses in his dua, Ya Uddati. He says, O Lord, I seek forgiveness from You of every sin for which I have sought forgiveness and shamelessly reverted to. But the sentiment that is being expressed here is that, O Lord, allow me to confidently seek forgiveness for every sin that I have often repeated without feeling unworthy of You. Now that is something. You see, sometimes we become extremely embarrassed within. We say, Allah, I'm tired of seeking forgiveness from You. I ask for forgiveness and I revert to my sin again. But then there is a stage beyond that where we say, oh Allah, You know me, I know myself. I'm embarrassed of myself, but I do not have anybody other than You. And I want to take this liberty of feeling confident that I have a friend, I have a companion who will understand me, who will accept my excuse, who will help me, will see me as a wayward friend or an unruly child, have mercy on me, and will accept me as I am. And that beautiful sentiment that Ali expresses at this point, that, O Lord, I know that You cover my faults from the eyes of even the noble scribes, in order so that I may not feel embarrassed, in order to not embarrass me. In another dua they say, O Lord, You know my weakness. Do not expose me to Your creatures on the day of Qiyamah. As you have kept my defects hidden in this world, then I ask you to keep them concealed in the next world. We need to acquire such a level of intimacy with God. Yes, the fire needs to be feared. We need to plead to God to free us from the fire. And it is real. Some things have happened in life prior to this, due to which now we face this perilous journey, either to the paradise or either to fire, and after that Allah knows what comes. Fire needs to be feared. But what needs to be feared beyond the fire is the loss of God within. For if loss of God comes, then even the fire cannot rectify our state. Honestly, it is better to be imprisoned in the love of Hussein. It is better to have our limbs torn apart in the love of our beloved Hussein. And of what use is dying without the love of Hussein in that soul? Do you not see the distinction? And I need to finish with this sentiment just to express what we need, where we need to be with Allah. When Muslim ibn Awsaja, and we hear this, his epic statements, he said, "Oh Hussein, if that is for you, then I would want from Allah to be restored after every death, to come back, to assist you and to die for you again and again." That is the level at which we need to invite God. Can we pray Surah Fatiha for all our marhumin? Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين وآله الطيبين الطاهرين أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Reading the spiritual literature of Islam and that of Christianity, Judaism, Hinduism, amongst the Shia and the Sunni, we begin to realize that truly at that level we are all one. We all have the light of God within us, and it yearns to belong to God in a similar manner. All of us, deep within ourselves, acknowledge our state of alienation from the most beautiful one. We acknowledge our dire state of need to belong to God. We acknowledge the need for deep-seated acknowledgement of the truth and the need for substantive existence. I realized this much later on in life, that rather than sitting with the interfaith community and the non-faith community on the basis of shared values, it is actually better to sit with the interfaith community primarily on the basis of shared spirituality. For there, no two people are different. You ask them all, what is God? And they will say, He is the splendid one, the peak of our aspiration, the one who is kinder than the kindest parent, closer than any other entity, majestic beyond reach. He forgives in an instant. He sheds tears for our pain. rejoices at our gains. He is with us and never leaves us. He is the one that we reach out to at the depths of our being. That is the language that we need to speak with the people of faith, where we will not be scrounging around for common theological doctrines, but the hearts will speak in sync with one language. They will sing His praise, and no two people of differing faiths will be able to distinguish to which faith they belong. For at this level, they are one and the same, and all are equal. And if you read the Quran, you find that this meaning actually comes out. That say to the people of the book, let us come together in the devotion of one God. Leave aside your notions of God, your prophets, your revelations. Call on to that deep-seated truth that is within yourself and make that a point of unity. I feel now that if we were to share spiritually, we might come to a position where we can bring peace, a sustainable peace, within the hearts that can then shape our bodily destiny. You see, when you can talk about Hussein ibn Ali and his spiritual belonging to God, and how he gave himself over to God, and his final moments, and how he radiates, and his state of forgiveness, and how he forgives his antagonist, a Christian's eyes would flood with tears at the recognition of the truth embedded deep within his soul of the godliness that he associates with Jesus. A humanitarian not belonging to any faith will find deep in his own self that he is moved with recognition of truth that is deep within himself. And the Quran says, you find their eyes flooding with tears at the recognition of the truth as they hear it. If we can work on being one with the interfaith community by sharing spiritually the inner sentiments, becoming open with one and all, and talking that godly language that emerges from the depths of our souls, we don't even need to resort to spiritual literature. And we will do it. For everyone will say, my God, in the folds of Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, there are the same sentiments that are godly sentiments. And if we were to share our spiritual literature, then by God, it will be seen as the common heritage of humanity. And then after sharing the spiritual literature, we will begin to respect Guru Nanak, and the Sikhs will begin to respect Imam Sadiq. I think that is the key for us to come together as a human community, not on basis of mere commonly shared human values, nor on the basis of common theology, but on the basis of one singular spirituality. And then imagine if we can then talk of our beautiful Prophet and the Imams, then how phenomenal would be the impact of these personalities on the minds of the listeners. Obviously tomorrow is the day of Imam Hassan, so I would like to share a hadith of his, in which he once stated, and I'm going to give you the narration, not he stated, the Prophet stated, there was a person, Imam Hassan used to be quite princely in his attire and the way he used to present himself, and quite majestic. So a person, in order to mock Imam Hassan, he came in rags. And he said, "Oh Hassan, son of Ali." He said, "Yes." He said, "Did your grandfather not say that this world is a prison for the faithful and paradise for the faithless, whereas the hereafter will be paradise for the faithful and a prison for the one devoid of faith?" Imam Hassan said, "Yes, indeed." So in order to taunt Imam Hassan or to mock him, he said, well, then look at the state. You are in princely attire, and I am in rags. You are in affluence, I in poverty. It seems that this world is paradise for you and a prison for me. The Imam calmly smiled, and he said, maybe if you could see what awaits me in the hereafter, in comparison, you will say, Hassan, this is indeed a prison for you in comparison to what waits for you in the hereafter. And maybe if you could see what awaits a faithless in the hereafter, you will indeed in comparison say that this world of rags and poverty is indeed paradise compared to what is coming. This hadith is not to be taken at face value. I think what Imam Hassan meant in accordance with what the Prophet was saying was that this world is indeed a prison, for the faithful has been alienated from God. And that world is paradise, for the faithful will be united with God, union with God without the bodily obstacles. I think that is what was meant. We have come in this world in anguish, in pain. And that is why we are feeling the sorrow inside. And we want to find that connection with God. And that is why the spiritual talk and literature means so much more than any form or formalistic faith. And in the hereafter, if we were to find paradise, and bodies and women and grass and trees and rivers, it would be as turbulent, cumbersome, unfulfilling as this world is. The only thing that will be fulfilling in that world is union with God. When we find ourselves and we find truly where we belong. And I think that is what Imam Hassan meant through the hadith of the Blessed Prophet. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless us and accept our fasts. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the heart, give us the hearts to share charitably with His creatures in this month. And through that giving, may He humble our hearts in thanking Him for allowing us to share what was His with His family. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala cure all those who are unwell and sick. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless all those who have gone before us. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring peace to this world of ours. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give insight to the leaders of our nation states to bring about peace in the volatile situation between Ukraine and Russia, and that this war comes to an end and there is a truce and a peaceful resolution and does not continue any further and does not extend to any other region. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala hasten the reappearance of our beloved Imam and grant us the grand boon to serve His creatures in His divine presence. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya wal mursaleen wa alihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin. Allahumma salli wa sallim ala Muhammadin al-Mustafa wa ala aliyin al-Murtada wa ala Fatimat al-Zahra wa ala al-Hassan al-Mujtaba wal Hussein al-Shaheed bi Karbala wa ala Ali ibn al-Hussein wa Muhammad ibn Ali wa Ja'far ibn Muhammad wa Musa ibn Ja'far وعلي بن موسى ومحمد بن علي وعلي بن محمد والحسن بن علي وحجة الله بن الحسن القائم المهدي المنتظر. اللهم عجل فرجا وسهل مخرجا واجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه والمستشهدين بين يديه. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له